and we're talking, and then all of a sudden Mike just shows up. Like he snuck backstage and just shows up.
I may have coerced Paul Bouchard.
You did. And I'm like, I met you once at the bar, I'm pretty sure. Like, and
I think it's just a finger gun.
I have like no idea who he is, and he's like snuck backstage and asked me. I have no control back there. I have no power whatsoever. And then talks to Adam, gets a couple things signed, hangs out for a few minutes, and then leaves. And to this day, that is how I remember Mike. And the whole time I was like, I am nothing but impressed.
All right, here we are live. This is Michael Beck and Mr. Chad Horn. I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud for everybody. Sterling, today is Chad Horn's birthday. He is a birthday boy today.
Happy birthday.
And now the whole world won't let me forget it.
That's right.
Michael wrote a very kind article this morning.
I blew up his whole day.
And the gift Michael got you was you have to record a podcast with me. So that's like the equivalent of getting coal for Christmas. I'm sorry, Chad.
Not in Chad's book. He's like, holy crap, you got Sterling Douglas. This is the best thing ever. So yeah.
And it's not our first podcast together, Sterling. And I enjoyed the last one a lot.
So everybody, clearly we know who our guest is here today. He's Mr. Sterling Douglas of Chowly. Somebody Sorry, Sterling, it's going to be a little flattering. I've admired you for a long time, watched you do your stuff. I was like, you're the first global citizens I ever met back when we first talked. Like, yeah, I don't really live in one place. I just kind of do my thing. I was, that's so right. Cool, right? I absolutely love that because I am really bound to all my stuff and a little bit of, hey, I can move on. I don't need my stuff.
I did see a couple items in your background, a couple materials that it looks like you own.
There's a few. It's actually gamification for sales. Every time I got a big sale, I would get a object that was commensurate with it to celebrate with my family, because somebody once said that you don't get a trophy nobody's ever going to be a trophy from being away from home. So I said, F it. Every time it was worth something, I'm getting a trophy.
That's a good one. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So it's the room of a sales serial killer. That's the joke that goes on. I bring home a trophy. So. Anyways, well, dude, thank you for spending some time with us today. Chad and I have just been vibing on this, and Chowly's been around for a while now, and the company is, as most companies tend to do, they don't end up where they started, right? We all hope we don't end up where we started. So you've been evolving this thing, and one of the things I would love to do with you is just let the world know what you do now. What is Chowly today?
Sure. Yeah. Chowly is, our new product, and the direction that we're going is to be a holistic platform for restaurants, really everything outside of the four walls. So you think about off-premise, right? We think about orders, we think about delivery, we think about pickup. But the way we think about off-premise is off-premise interactions, right? The consumers that are walking by your digital storefront, which would be like your Google business profile, your website. And so what the Chowly platform does is it takes all these different digital properties. It takes all these different digital touch points for the consumers and puts them all in one place. So we'll do everything from your Google ads, your Google business profile listings, your marketing website, your first party ordering. We'll build you a mobile app. We'll do your email marketing, and of course your third party marketplaces with reconciliation tools, all of that in one place, right? And especially for independent operators who we focus on, we can give them an enterprise grade technology stack with like full Google ad attribution, right? But for a price and for a simple experience that makes sense for an SMB restaurant.
Sterling, I love that. And when I talk to smaller operators, like single, double, triple locations, like small guys, and I figure out where they are with their technology, what you just described is the first thing I see them usually needing. Right? All in one. Hey, we got you here on the thing that's going to actually help your business survive. People coming through the door. How did you get there? So, walk us through the story of like how you arrived at that, given where you started.
Well, believe it or not, you can actually find some old PowerPoint decks in 2016 when we first started the company that kind of sort of showed the picture that this is kind of what we wanted to build. So it's always been in the back of our minds. But I'm a big believer when you're starting a company from scratch, just do one thing and do it really, really well and do it as long as you can. So we started with the marketplaces, but the premise and the why behind it was the same, right? Our mission's always been to simplify technology for operators. And back in 2016, the thing they were asking for, the thing that was complicating their business, were these marketplaces. And so we created a product that integrated those marketplaces into their point of sale systems. And that's what we did for the first 10,000 restaurants and the first 10 million of ARR. And then as we started to get to that scale, as there were different market factors occurring, we started to really start building kind of this platform vision and have it kind of take shape. I mean, to be frank, we really started working on this about 2 years ago. We did an acquisition of a company called Koala, and that was kind of the first kind of major step towards this. We launched 2 more products that year. We acquired another company called Targetable at the very beginning of 2024. Launched 2 more products last year, and finally in January really kind of pulled it all together. Because one of the things I didn't want to do is I didn't want to just be the jack of all trades, master of none. We wanted to be really good at each one of those, and we knew that was going to take some time, and that's the time that we put into the Chowly platform.
It really seems like, I mean, if we look at all the various solutions on the market and almost the staggering layering of SaaS and SaaS fatigue that hits, you're kind of the right man for the right time with this kind of thing, or right company, right? There's so many things that are being thrown at people.
Yeah, there's the SaaS fatigue. I like that. Like, I haven't heard that phrase. I like that one.
I also wrote a story about the Sasquatch.
It's completely unrelated, but it would be a really fun story to tell.
It was actually about SaaS Squatch, but yes, go ahead.
I love that. I think that for us, the market timing was important, right? Because if you think back to 2018, 2019, restaurant tech was exploding with point solutions and innovative tech. I mean, the startup alleys and the innovation side of things, like, we weren't the only one. I mean, our space was very new. It was cool, provided value, but there's a lot of them. And as we started getting into the post-COVID world, where you saw a huge kind of rush and dash towards everything off-prem, and so as you kind of started seeing AI come up and some of these other things, you saw restaurants all of a sudden they could look for that vendor consolidation, right? Like the last few years have been some of the toughest years for restaurants, since I've been into the space, my somewhat short career in here. And when times get tough, the number one thing you do is you simplify your business. And so I think that's one of the reasons we've had such positive reception to the new platform product, because it helps restaurants simplify their business when times are getting really tough.
Before you jump in, Chad, I know you got here, but when we're looking at the various, I don't know if you're willing to talk about this because it'd be a little contentious. What are you replacing? Like if people have all these things in their stack they're looking at, what are they replacing? Because that's actually real.
It's actually what makes the sale fairly difficult. I'm impressed daily by the sales reps at Chowly and their ability to almost perform this advisor role to our restaurants. We're usually replacing like 3 or 4 different pieces of tech.
Yeah.
Right. Because most restaurants today, their marketing website, kind of their main website, is a completely different product than their online ordering tool.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's already 2 companies right there. And it's not only that their website is a different tool, but they might have an agency or an IT guy that's actually making the changes. So They have like one company that kind of performs the services component, another company that's actually the product, and then you got another company that does online ordering, and then you might have something completely different for your app. You might use your point of sale for this feature or that feature. And so we're oftentimes replacing like a lot. Now, we're not the only ones, with this idea of doing this. There's a couple companies that are really good at certain things. But the thing that I think makes us the most unique is that ours is really built around this idea of integration, because that's how we came up,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
we were integrating marketplaces and the point of sales before Uber Eats even existed, right? Like we were really early. And so it was really early in our tenure when Justin and I kind of figured out this idea that just connecting, right, all these different technologies so they speak to that's value. Like that's real value if you do it the right way.
Right.
And so it's not just having the website and the online ordering, but making sure it's all integrated into the point of sale.
Yep.
And then it's making sure that you're not just providing Google ads, but they're integrating, into, the online ordering component that we have in the CRM, so we can tell you that, hey, first of all, you run an ad, you're like, yeah, it probably got you some orders, and then everyone tries to look at this incrementality. Well, we just do direct attribution because we have kind of visibility into it. But we'll even go a step further. We'll tell you that like of the $900 of sales you got from running this particular ad, $460 were actually from repeat customers, whereas the remaining was from net new customers. Right. So how are we increasing LTV versus increasing new customers? Like being able, like all these integration points enable you to do that, and I think that's what makes us really unique, because ours is by far the most integrated product in what we do.
Sterling, you had said the word simplify before, being being a core part of your mission, and integration. In my experience, doing it well has a lot to do with simplifying an operator's
Yes.
world. And simplification is one of the most important factors we look at in all the companies in our space that we look to partner with or support in one way or another. Talk about where you are now from the standpoint of your solution. You do things for a client, you do things with a client, you enable them to do it on their own, and how that's going to evolve with AI. Because agentic AI is a big theme, which
Yep.
can absolutely do things for you, is the promise, maybe even use software for you, even if the software developer didn't know it, right? And talk about where you are now and where you're going.
Yeah, I think on the point of simplification, integration, it definitely makes things simpler when it works, to your point. When it doesn't work, it just makes things
Yeah.
worse. So that is very, very important. We have a huge focus on quality. Uber Eats and DoorDash, we're maniacal with them if we're getting any type of order error. With them, we're like, what does this error message mean? It's not in your documentation. How do we prevent this from happening? How do we do it? Like we are relying. And there are people over there that are tired from getting those messages from me and our team. But the quality is super important. And to the second part of your question on kind of this like done for you, done with you, we are fairly big believers in that it's got to be done for you, especially for operators that are less than 3 or less locations. We learned this in Chowly super early on, back before there was such a thing as kind of like a menu integration. We had this idea that when we integrated orders, the restaurant would kind of map it, right? Like they have a menu in their point of sale, and they have a menu in Grubhub, and they would kind of go through the work to actually line it up. That was very quickly disproven because we relied on that. No one would ever gone live in the enterprise space, maybe, but not in the SMB space. And so we realized quickly that like we have to have processes to do this for them. And so that's kind of been built in our DNA since day one. Targetable was the same. It was one of their taglines was done for you. And so I would say the overwhelming majority of our restaurant groups on the platform product that are 3 or less locations, we are building the ads, we are building the emails, we're doing all the campaigns, the copy, the website, and it's mostly done for them. They really don't have to do it. We believe that their time is better spent figuring out how to get through that 3-location wall that so many of them, are trying to work on. Let us do this. And so that's a huge part of kind of just return on time.
So full creative services in there?
Restaurants. Yes, that's correct.
That's awesome.
And it's hybrid in terms of we definitely leverage AI to make ourselves more efficient, to give some more options, but there's also humans behind that too. We have designers that work on it. As we get into the kind of that 4 to 10 location, then it's done with you. right? They actually have some brand guidelines that they'll give us. They actually have some of these things, and then we can actually adjust our templates in our system to take that in, right? So we're able to kind of ingest, their brand because they're always going to know their brand better than us, even if we might know the data better. And then as you get into the 10 plus, it's much more of kind of like a self-serve. We're more of a customer success. We're training. So it just depends on kind of the customer size. But for us, really focused on, whether it's done for you, done with you, or you got it. We're able to kind of tailor that per group, and that's just based off of, the 8 years of experience we have in the space.
When it comes to, and I know AI is almost like people are also starting to get AI fatigue, at least on the word, right? Right. But when I heard
You guys know this is my AI avatar. I'm
oh,
not here, right?
now that it all makes sense now what happened earlier. There's like smoke coming out of his ears. It was very interesting. But so, when I worked at back office companies, the big lift on deployment was all the configurations, right? Do you think AI or agentic AI will start taking over some of those functions for those long implementations? Because it's really flipping a lot of digital switches, at least in my oversimplified view of the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the back end of a point of sale system, you
Yeah.
realize fairly quickly, like, oh, a point of sale is 1,000 checkboxes.
Yeah.
That's how you configure a system. Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of whether something is aiding or whether it's doing,
Right.
or sometimes whether it's checking. I really like the whole idea of operator, right? From OpenAI, which is an agent, but it's got a lot of like kind of like screen filling out ones. Leveraging that for QA is actually awesome, especially when you have a lot of like front end and UI components. Because I mean, when you're managing hundreds of different, not just the online orderings, but websites, having something that's a bit more programmatic that isn't necessarily smoke testing, right? I think that's an awesome use case for it. So that's something that we use, and it's built into the tool, right? Like if we're collecting all this data, on behalf of a restaurant, like we know what these people ordered, we know when they ordered. You can do a lot of cool personalization for it, right? To increase those email open rates, to try to get increase that orders per month or that LTV of the customer. So those are all things that we're doing. I haven't found any silver bullets yet on it. I think
Yeah.
just a lot of lead bullets. It's a lot of 1% improvements, and I'm really big on just stacking those over time.
That incremental learning curve is just kind of keep adding on, adding.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah.
So Sterling, with we talk about integration, like there's a lot of integrations within our own ecosystem, but a lot of what you do is integrating and partnering with large, massive companies, social media platforms to get the word out about a brand that you have no shot at controlling and influencing in any way whatsoever. How do you navigate those types of partnerships and integrations? And obviously, most notably, Google, which you write about prolifically.
The Google.
And and then again, that just after you go there, just riff on Google and what people should know about them.
Yeah, it's in terms of partnerships with huge companies. There's a lot of similarities to partnerships with smaller companies too. There's always a bit of leverage. There's always differences, but the constant between all of them is it's always the people behind the company. It's less important to me the logo that has it, or the domain after the and sign in the email. Like that part's less important to me than what's on the other side, right? And so when Google first came out with Google Food Ordering, right? This was Jane Hong, and this was this was Brian. This was a team of people that were building that ecosystem and doing that, and that's who we partnered with. All right, and now we just got done doing a webinar with Google with Lisa Landsman and Mike Nagy.
Oh, wow.
Mike Nagy leads product for Google Business Profile. Right? Those are the people that we're partnering with, and every single company is like that. And so for me, I care a little bit more about the people behind the partnership, because that's who you're really working with, than it is the logo. And when it comes to Google, yeah, I mean, I've always been big on their power, but I was always curious why it wasn't wielded more prolifically. Like marketplaces have dominated, restaurants and the restaurant tech sector for almost a decade now. If you look at who's going public, who's in the headlines, who's kind of where's the shift of orders going, and it was always curious to me why someone like Google, wouldn't be more dominant there. I actually understood why Amazon wouldn't. I understood why Apple wouldn't, but I Google is different because Google knows your intent. And that's what all these other social media companies don't know. Google knows when you're hungry. And the ICP, the ideal customer profile of a restaurant, is someone hungry, right? Like, you talk to every oh my goodness, any SaaS tech company has an ICP. It's a restaurant between this many units and this many units, that's in this food category, that's in like this geography. A restaurant, are they hungry? Like that's it. Like that's what you care about. And Google knows that because when you search for restaurant near me or tacos near me, you're hungry, you're looking to eat. And that to me is just the most powerful part of what Google can do. And last year, I think, was a turning point and an inflection point because Google's, I look at, I think of discovery as like the holy grail of the top of funnel for restaurants. And this is what marketplaces were so good at. If I logged on to Uber Eats, I could see all the different restaurants and I could discover the different restaurants.
Yeah.
And last year, DoorDash grew like 26%, and Uber Eats grew like 23%.
I got kicked out of my own podcast. I'm back.
You're good.
It's the hostile takeover. I'm almost done. So I'm actually kind of, how'd you get back?
I've been hacked.
But you look at how much Google's restaurant and food search, it grew 33%.
Wow.
It's growing faster. Google is the way people are going to discover restaurants in 2025 and beyond. Marketplaces are going to get less and less of that discovery share. And Google gives restaurants these amazing tools to capture it. But if you don't know how to use them, then you're losing out. And I mean, I would say a solid third of our platform is built around everything we've learned about Google and how to capture that Google traffic and that Google demand, and we can convert that into more orders for the restaurant.
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, one of the things I've been curious about Google, and maybe is years ago they bought Waze, right? And they spent an inordinate amount of money for it, and people are going, yeah, they do Google Maps and they want good map data, and some people are like, no, it's not about that. It's about the data that happens inside of Waze, how fast people drive, how frequently they brake. And is today's Google, from your opinion, something? Is their revenue stream tightly coupled to the data? Is it still a data play for them? Almost like, if I'm making sense.
I think. Yeah, no, I totally get where you're going.
Yeah,
Google's. I think what they have to continue to own search, and the data helps them just stay on top of it. But it's kind of like more data begets more data begets more data. So for them, a huge kind of pillar of what they're trying to go after is they want to connect the people who are searching for something with what they were searching for. And so for them, they care more about someone searching for tacos and successfully finding a place that they actually ordered tacos from. Like that's what they care the most about, because if they do that, they know the customer is going to search for whatever the next thing is, and for whatever the next thing is, and for whatever the next thing is. And so it's been really interesting with them, learning about like what matters to them. Anytime we partner with anybody, and we always have what we want. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what they want, what motivates them,
Right.
and how do we help them get there. Because if we can do that, if we can help them get where they want to go, they'll be more apt and they'll want to, invest in things to make our partnership better that end up making, benefiting us and benefiting our customers. And so I think with Google, that's what they want. They just want, when someone searches for something, to make sure they find it. And so that's what we're trying to figure out how to help them do.
So if I'm a restaurant and I'm like, how do I get more orders this year, right? 2025. Is Get Google Right one of your top three, or is kind of Google a part of all your top three? How would you frame the top three?
It's the first thing we
Ooh.
do.
Okay.
It is every implementation, every platform, because the first thing we do is we do a Google housekeeping. So we take a look at their Google business profiles and we figure out which best practices they're not doing. And that's going to be what we look at before we even get on the phone with them. And then on call one, we get access. They add us as a manager to the profile so that we can just fix it for them. All right. It's one of the first things we do. Now, Google isn't necessarily the solve for every customer, but there's no reason not to make sure your Google business profile is following best practices, because you'll show up more and you'll get more searches and you'll likely get more orders. Like, that's just anyone who's not there. Sometimes we go to a customer and their Google business profile is great. All right, we're not going to do much with it. But we always start there because there's a bare minimum it has to be, because it's just low hanging fruit. But after that, I mean, it just depends. Every restaurant's in a different, they're in a different stage in their journey. They're in a different geographical area. And those things matter a ton. The playbooks that we run for an established brand in the middle of Manhattan are very different than what we do for a somewhat, rural place 2 hours outside of Georgia that's kind of, on the side of a highway.
Yeah.
We know what the plays are. Like, we can help both, but they're very different. It's different for new stores versus existing stores. It's different depending on your footprint. It's different if you've got reservations versus if you're focusing on orders. We've got a lot of different playbooks that we've used in the past. But I would say like the low-hanging fruit on Google, like, we do that every time because there's no reason not to.
At the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about, what do we want to talk about today? And the idea of entrepreneurship, came up real heavy at the end. And it seems like we're kind of in a nice way to transition there. So with these companies you're working with, right, and knowing the ground you've covered as an entrepreneur, do you offer in some advice to them saying, hey, I noticed this and this and this, I've been outside the margins, like you get one you just love on, like, bro, let me take you aside and tell you something.
I don't. Yeah, that one.
My cartoon is vast here, so
I was going to say. I'm going to say those might not be the words I use. No, I love working with entrepreneurs. It's my favorite thing. I am one, and when I first started, my first company failed. Right, like I talk about it somewhat often, but people just assume Chowly and they see that it worked, but what they don't realize is that when I started before, it failed massively. I went into debt. I sold my furniture, and I was sleeping on an air mattress. I was day trading crypto on credit card advances to pay rent. It wasn't going well.
Right.
And then we ended up we found Chowly. I got the right co-founder, and all these things started working. Plenty of luck involved.
Yeah.
But like during all of that, people were helping me. Right? People were helping me, and they weren't charging to give me advice. Like they weren't getting anything out of it. They just knew that when they first started, people helped them too.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for those people, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And so I just think about that a lot. I still have people today who are, they run, companies that are doing, a couple $100 million in revenue, and they talk to me for no reason. Because there's no reason.
Right.
And so I love doing that the other way. Like I love talking to early stage. trying to go from zero to your first million, that was actually my favorite part of the journey. I
Yeah.
love that part of it. And so, yeah, helping them, like that's my favorite thing to do. When it comes to the restaurant side, yeah, I mean, I'm usually there more for commiseration. I don't think I can tell you how
Is there
to.
emphasis on the miser?
In the early times they're so tough. So like, yeah, oh yeah, dude, I was in the same boat. I
Yeah.
was in this. I had this issue. I had a fight with this person. Yeah, having a board is really tough. Yeah, investors. Ugh, like, it's like those types of stories. Yeah, I mean, on the restaurant side, of course, I'm always here to help, but I'm never gonna know as much about anyone else's business than they will.
Sure.
That's always my. No one's ever going to know more about Chowly than me. And the same goes for anyone else. I'm never going to know as much about your business as you will. I just never will. I don't eat, live, and breathe it like you do.
That's true.
So you were talking about giving back, right, to entrepreneurs because people poured into you, Sterling. But you're busy, right? You're running a company, and your employees and your customers depend on you. What's your thought process to decide who gets time from
Ooh.
you, and who doesn't?
Click.
If they,
Nope.
I basically, if they LinkedIn message me as much as Michael does, then I help them, and if not, like, I'm out. No, I think a lot of things. Who's introing us? If someone who helped me or mentored me, if they intro me, like I respond immediately. Like there are
Yeah.
just a few folks, like they've been there for me when I needed them. So when they ask me to do something, whether it's talk to this entrepreneur or my daughter is doing informational interviews as part of a school project, or participate in whatever fundraiser, like I don't even think about it. Like anyone who helped me, like I'm always going to say yes when they ask me for stuff. But for outside of that, just following up on being engaged is one of the biggest things. And I learned this too. This guy met with me, gave me tons of advice. I didn't write anything down.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk to him and send him a thank you. It was an awesome conversation. I learned a ton. And then like 9 months later, I reach out, I'm like, hey, we'd love to chat again. This thing came up. He basically was like, no. you know, um, hey,
Yeah.
I enjoyed our conversation. Like, he's very polite about it, but he's like, if I'm gonna put my time to someone, I need to see that they're putting the time back.
Yeah.
Like, I gave you a couple things. You never told me how they went. Like, did it work? Did it not work? Like, I want to know. Like, that
Yeah.
feedback loop
Yeah.
needs to be closed. And so, I apologized, and he ended up taking another meeting with me, and I never made that mistake again. And it was helpful because it kind of held me accountable. I liked it a lot. I didn't get it. I just thought he was kind of being a jerk, but I wanted the knowledge so bad I didn't
Yeah.
care. And now I get it. It's like if you're gonna put time into something, you want to see it grow. You want to see it be successful.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
want to hear about like the good news. I mean, call me with the bad news too. I can be much more helpful. But like that's closing the feedback loops. If someone's giving you advice, I think is a really big thing.
Well, it's also being able to exhibit a moment of gratitude as it's working or progressing. Or I live off of dopamine hits. It's probably for some people like, yeah, look at that, we got him there. It's great, you know. When you think about that, like that's one of the surprises you got. Like, oh, I have to invest back when people give something to me because there's is whether you call it echolocation or just knowing you're out there doing your thing. Chad and I are on a very similar journey in a way about discovery and you know getting bruises and learning lessons. But like, what are some of the other kind of common things that you might think or that people are surprised about that got you if you knew this now or knew this then, well, now what are like a couple of those that you could think of? Like I had a bit mistake. I didn't align with a partner's expectations. Who's going to do certain work, right? So there's communication stuff. But like, what are they for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of these. I don't know. I think that it's saying the right. there's like characteristics, there's traits, there's themes, there's concepts, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
But it's making sure that they mean the right thing. So, for example, like one of our core values at Chowly is direct communication. Okay, cool. We have core values, direct communication. If you ask 10 people what that means, you'll get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
And so you've got to go a level deeper and like, what does that actually mean? Right. And so then, we went through, we tried to write it down.
You mean
Good
words on
news
the
travels.
wall don't just cut it?
No, they don't. They don't. It's crazy, right? But like, all right, good news travels fast, bad news travels faster.
Yes.
Okay, now we're making progress. But like, bad news travels faster. All right, bad news happens. Do I just, infect every room I'm in with negativity? Right? And we're bringing down the room. Like, no, that's not it either. And so, like, as you kind of like go down the list, one of the things that we realized was a part of direct communication that we didn't know initially is that you need to tell people need to know where they stand. If someone's not doing a good job, they need to know. And they need to know why.
Right.
And so like those tough conversations, what we realized is that there was kind of this idea of like running toward the fires, right? Running towards the tough conversation,
Yeah.
embracing them. And so what I bring this back to is that you said the phrase like setting expectations. It's just being so incredibly detail oriented with those expectations. I ended up being a lot better at it than I thought I was, but I didn't embrace it. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know it was something I needed to be relentless about. And I probably have only learned that in the last like year or so. And it's something that I wish I was more relentless on the details. And an example of that would be kind of how I thought about direct communication.
Chad is just soaking
Very,
that one.
very
He's
good.
like, how do I talk to Mike about this thing tomorrow?
Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, for real. Like, no,
No.
we should talk about that. It took Sterling, almost 10 years, so we got, clearly we got to dial that in as well.
Well, that's like
Don't
my
worry,
wife.
even if you take another 4 years, you've still gone twice as fast as I did.
Yeah. So I've been a part of a few companies, starting companies, and teams, and people talk about culture, right? And I could not say enough about how critical a strong culture is, and I'm sure you're going to agree. But like, what aspects of building and maintaining a culture would you highlight here as an entrepreneur?
I'm gonna add the variable of adding remote culture to that too. If you have remote workers, there's a different layer of deliberate that goes to that, right?
Yeah. If that's the question, then my answer will be I will let you know when I figure it out. I still don't. We are miles away from mastering kind of remote culture. It's just so tough. It is so much easier in the office. It's so much easier in the office. I was in the office this week. I'm in Chicago. Even though I live in Denver now. And I'm in the office with like 4 people. Like, that's it. And we've gotten more done and had more banter. We've solved problems. We've set up new standards. People are getting the concepts. They're like internalizing them faster with just this tiny group of people. It's just easier. It's easier in person. I haven't figured out how to do it remote yet. But on the culture side, it's you can figure out the culture of a company fairly quickly by just figuring out what their habits are. What are their habits? Roughly, on average, how long does it take them to respond when a customer email is? Do they tag people when they ask for something, and they just put it out into the ether? Are the Slack indicators on or off at certain times of day? If you see the habits, that's what your culture is. And changing habits at a company, it's just as hard as changing habits as a person. It takes a lot of repetition. It's really easy to get off the train, and it's really hard. But when you do it, it's super rewarding, and it can kind of change the direction of where you're going.
We experimented for a while having everybody that was in have their camera on when they're at their desk. Like it was you wouldn't be able to communicate with if you're busy and focus on something, but you're there and working. And when your green light was on, you could pop by and do the almost over the partition. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? But nothing replaces atmospheric noise. Like we're working on this, we're developing that, we're growing things. It almost seems insane to have a startup be purely remote because there's such alchemical things that happen when it all comes together.
It's a magnitude of difference of the interactions. Like this is why I don't, and I'm still trying to get. When you're remote, you're on Zoom calls, you're on huddles.
Hmm.
Even your business partner, someone you work with a ton. What's the max? Like 5 calls,
Yeah, we would probably get
like
maybe
in a
2
day.
hours a day total, maybe.
Yeah, like 5 calls. So that's five kind of interactions, five conversations. In an office, there's 100.
Hmm.
You're walking to the bathroom, you're seeing them on the cooler, you overhear them on a call, they walk by to get a snack, they're filling up their water, you're going to get coffee, you stop to go get lunch, you run into someone on the sidewalk.
Yep.
I mean, the amount of these little micro, and every one of those is an opportunity for something to happen. The magnitude is just so different. In the office, I would never go a single day without talking to my co-founder. Remote, all the time.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
time we go whole days. So I think that's. I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know what the solve is. We're still working on it.
I mean, it's almost like working when you do work at home and you don't have like I have to have music playing. I have to have some kind of environmental noise, and it's almost the noise of business though. Like I got a deal. I got something on the line. Things are going great. Oh my God, we just made this development, and everybody in the room is now hyped. You
Yeah.
don't get that by yourself.
I did hit the sales gong this morning at the office, though.
Oh, there you go. Is
That
it's not
thing.
it's well shined though. It's from many dings, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah, it's got a
Yeah.
lot of dents in it. Both the mallets are broken because they were just hitting it so hard.
Love it.
No, it was fun. It was fun. We used to have two. We'd battle because we had two teams on two sides, and we'd have the battling gongs. And so it was fun just
That's
coming
right.
back to the office. Helped one of the reps close the deal, and hit the gong. So
Nice.
like, yeah, it's awesome.
Sterling, you
What?
navigated something related to this, which is very difficult for a company to do, and you've done it more than once, which is integrating with new teams you're acquiring in a business like
Ooh,
from Koala and Targetable.
M
How
and
did
A.
how did that go, and how have you done that? Because you've integrated, right, from a tech standpoint, but that also means integrating teams and people. How have you done that?
And without making them feel like abandoned children. Right? Like,
Yeah. I am. I'm certainly not going to sit here and say we did it perfectly. We made a lot of
it's
mistakes
hard.
along the way. Um, we got a lot better at it our second time compared to our first time. I'll be super frank about that. The tech is, I would say, integrating the tech is equally as hard as integrating. They're about equal, and they're both incredibly difficult. I learned a lot about how the terms of the deal impact the integration as well, because look, when we acquired Koala, I set an insanely aggressive deadline to get our first integrated tech live, and it's because we had to, we just needed to. The way that the deal was structured and the terms and how all the economics worked, we had to go live quickly, and that put a lot of pressure on us to do a lot of things in a short amount of time. And it was the first time a lot of us had been involved in something like that. And so you're going fast. You don't have a ton of experience with it. You're just making a lot of mistakes. So when we did the targetable deal, I was very intentional about the terms. So much so that we actually said no at first. And I actually introduced them to someone else, to a different company, because I was thinking this
Oh,
would be a really good fit. But like we're not, because we're not ready right now. Like we're still integrating the last company. I mean, that conversation is in like September. And then they got really far with that group I introduced them to. They got a letter of intent, and then they came back and they're like, "Hey, we think we could actually do some of the terms that you were looking at. Would you be interested?" And then all of a sudden, I was competing. So we were competing with the company that I had introduced them to.
That's amazing.
Which is hilarious. And then we were able to get the terms, and we were able to do certain things that just make it easier. We were able to have a little less pressure on how quickly we needed to get the tech integrated, we had no pressure to make any changes to their team on day one. Right on day one, like no changes were made, and that even if no changes are made for a couple weeks, the amount of just deep breaths everybody gets to take. All right, nothing's changing today.
Hmm.
Like that's like okay, and we're gonna learn more on this date, and here's the general direction. It lets everyone kind of put their guards down. So I think that we learned from the first one to the second one, and I would say from the targetable team, I think as of today, every single person who was employed there before the acquisition is still employed there today. Here
That's
today.
awesome.
And
That's admirable. That
working.
is awesome to hear.
That is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew's CEO, more in a consultant role, part time, but still involved, and every single person is still here, and that is a great signal to how we did, and we did a lot better on that second time than we did the first time.
We're coming down to about the top of the hour for this session.
So does that mean I get to ask my questions to
Oh,
you
you can
now?
ask questions all you want.
Nobody ever does that.
Yeah. Flip it around.
I have a list.
What the hell do you guys do?
Ready.
Well, before you do that, my last question is, and this is for every founder that might be watching or listening. What's your experience with and advice to the idea that you have to fire yourself? What like thinking about the hoarders out there, and they always ask that question on the Hoarder Show: what doesn't love you anymore, right? Like, what do you figure out what doesn't love you in your hoard of I have to own this part, right?
Yeah, I believed this for a long time, and it's been super true. Your number one job is to make yourself redundant. That is your goal. That is your goal. Every day you should be trying to make yourself a little more redundant. You'll never get there, most likely.
Right.
But it should be a guiding goal for you to make yourself redundant and figuring out how to do that. Because every time you make progress on that, you are solidifying the foundation for your business. You are making other people's lives easier when they're not relying on you. You are diversifying the risk. You're diversifying the workload if someone leaves. If you get sick, if you have a family issue, you are making your whole team more efficient when you're doing that. And so the whole goal when you start a company should actually be to make yourself redundant, because that's when you've built something beyond yourself.
I love that.
Well said.
All right, I don't have any more questions. If it's Sterling's got questions, I'm excited and kind of nervous.
Fire away.
Let's go. All right.
I want the two lowest points of your entire lives. No, I'm just kidding. I
was about to offer it up. Okay, good. Thanks.
we don't have enough time for these, Michael.
No,
We'll
it's very low.
We'll do a different one, maybe on a couch. I was going to say, what do you think? The one single, you have to pick one. What's the single biggest problem you all are solving with your business? What is the number one problem that your customers and potential customers have that you're solving? The biggest one. It's got to be one.
Getting the swings at bat.
All right, good. That's all the questions I had. I think we're
Cool.
all set.
Boy, you sound like you wanted a good succinct answer, right? Yeah.
What does that mean? What is that for the layman's out there like me?
So,
what does that mean?
And Chad, definitely chime in here because you're a big part of this too, right? When we first started this journey, it was like, go to market, and it was kind of wrapped first in a marketing blanket because when you hear GTM, it's kind of a marketing function, right? And what we figured out our unique value proposition is in this framework is that when we hear that language, we don't hear much about actually sales. We hear spend money on marketing and different marketing. And so the first part is let's dig into the morgue and find out what deals died and what the comorbidities are and how do we make vaccines for those. Let's look through the CRM and really figure out what happened there, right? And let's look at your pipeline now and see if it's real and see if we actually know enough about them to consider them people that are viable, sales opportunities. But as we moved on and we talked with founders and startups, it was, I've hired a BDR I'm paying them $40K a year. They may or may not work out. And we'd have another company that said, we hired a big, sales guy at $200K a year, and we don't know what's going on. It may work out. And we found out between the two of those employees, they're actually kind of the same guy for the first 6 months, or person, sorry, that was a little sexist. And what I mean by that is a BDR at a new company is going to make phone calls and find somebody and say, hey, Sterling, I got somebody on the line. It's time for you to go and close them, right? Founder-led sales. And your big sales guy is going to go, hey, Sterling, I got somebody on the line. They really want to look at it. Go sell them. And so you actually are hiring a very overpaid BDR in most cases, and you're hoping that they have some kind of influence on a buying cycle this customer may have because they have a Rolodex or a heavy LinkedIn following. And at the end of the day, we realized that the founders of these companies really, truly, and sincerely believe, and they're mostly right, that if they are able to have the conversation, they're able to carry the story, they'll probably close it. They'll have a higher chance of success than anybody else. Just like you said, nobody's going to know their business better, right? And that's why so many companies like, Crunch Time, Bill Bellissimo was the sales guy for almost ever. I don't care who said they sold the deal, Bill sold it, right? and that's a reality. And so we do believe that one of the things biggest things we solve is swings at bat. And I'll shut up for a second because Chad has a lot of better things to offer.
I'll say that the bigger need from like restaurant tech entrepreneurs is actually product market fit. They're not solving a big enough problem to really have a business. So we pass on those guys and pick the ones that have product market fit, so they get the swings at bat and help. Because once you've got a really awesome mousetrap, that's the challenge. Is just getting in front of these operators because it's a noisy industry. It is hard to even get that initial connection. So Michael's absolutely right. That's what we're doing.
Chad, how do you figure out if they have product market fit or not?
Ooh.
We don't have it down to a science, but
it's
really,
like
I have a formula. It's really easy. You just plug in a couple numbers and it just tells you yes or no.
Now we gut a fish, we put the guts on the thing, we look at it, we inhale eucalyptus fumes, and we come up with a forecast that we know is going to work.
The real
oracular
marketing.
It's
more of an art born out of experience at this point. Just like, all right, looking at the team, the solution, asking them questions about this and that, their vision, and kind of going, sometimes it's so obvious, oh my gosh, we're lucky to be talking to you. You guys are going to take over the industry. And most of the time it's like, how do I politely say,
how's that going to work for you?
Screwed.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten really good at politely telling people they're screwed.
Do you think that pricing plays a role in whether they have product market fit?
Somewhat.
Well, you can blow yourself out of a market if you're obtuse with your pricing. You're not looking at price elasticity or what people are willing to pay.
Not necessarily like, maybe not like the amount of and the pricing, but like how the pricing is set up, right? The different pricing kind of strategies in it. Because this is one thing, and the reason I ask is because I personally think it plays a huge role, and you can actually have the right product, and you can even have it at the right amount, but you just might be charging wrong for it.
Yeah,
charging the wrong.
And
yeah,
and I mostly say that just to point out that, and I have found that product market fit, to your point, as an art. You can try to get to a science, you might get there, but the amount of variables in that equation are large. And it'll be really hard to know, because even those things, I've seen it. I mean, we partnered with like almost everybody for a solid 6-7 years. So we got to see a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of people growing and not growing.
Well, to your point, there's a company we're talking to that has the assertion that they can still, like 15 years ago, you could go to Taco Bell and say, hey, listen, you're going to buy 1,000 locations worth of licenses. We're going to charge on day one. When they roll, they roll. And they would actually say yes. And there's a company we're talking to now. It's like, yeah, we're going to do that now. And I don't know if there's an appetite for that. That could be one of those things. Like, yeah, Taco Bell or whoever it is, we're going to sell you 1,000 licenses, and whether they go live now or later, that's up to you, right? Do you think that's something that brands will still do?
Well, I mean, if the only alternative is being, $55 a month to death by Sasquatch, then maybe. But yeah, no, I agree. A lot of those old models, the old reseller models, right? Those ones are really different now, and kind of what people are used to. But no, that's interesting. I love what you guys do. By the way, I think that type of guidance is a lot of times what can help make great products get into the market and help more restaurants. And I just think that benefits everybody.
Yeah, we like to try to pour gas on things. We like to be. I figured I'm loud and annoying enough. I might have put it to the power of good, and not being annoying. It was just loud.
Real quick, can we tell the story about like one of the first times I met Mike?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, so
By the way, I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Come on, that's way too big of a spoiler. So Chowly is we done a nice huge round of fundraising. We were in the middle of a year where we were tripling in growth. It was it was our hyper growth period. It was wild, and we had this enormous sponsorship of RLC. Right, this is like the biggest enterprise restaurant conference of the year. And we spent a huge amount of money on it, where we're introducing the keynote speaker, where we've got 2 different sessions. I'm moderating panels. We've got this huge booth. We've got dinners. I mean, we wanted the show to just be like the Chowly show. And so we spent all this money. And so it was right before I'm about to introduce Adam Savage from Mythbusters. He was a kid I was growing up watching, so it was kind of cool. So we're hanging out in the back, and
You're
we're
not
like
the
kind of
only
talking.
one.
And we're talking, and then all of a sudden, Mike just shows up. Like he snuck backstage and just shows up.
I may have coerced Paul Bouchard.
You did. You did. Paul was somehow you conned that man into helping.
I closed him.
Like, Sterling, this guy's heroes my kid. I just want him to sign a book. And I'm like, I met you once at the bar, I'm pretty sure. And
I think this is a finger gun.
Yeah, I have like no idea who he is. And he's like snuck backstage and asked me. I have no control back there. I have no power whatsoever. And then talks to Adam, gets a couple things signed, hangs out for a few minutes, and then leaves. And to this day, that is how I remember Mike. And the whole time I was like, I am nothing but impressed. Like that, this guy is crazy. I like him. I need to keep talking to this guy.
My face hurts.
That is how Mike and I met. That's how we met. He broke through, rules, snuck backstage to meet a famous person.
Now, I'm not starstruck by many, and I've worked with a lot of celebrities because I used to work in LA, but this is a nerd god, right? This is the source. Like, this guy had hands on the things that were in Star Wars. He made things that I had freaking adorn my room. Right now, that you see it, you get it, right? Like, oh my God, this guy's got a problem.
Adam was super nice too. He was awesome.
Yes.
He was hilarious on stage. He's a great speaker. Like, he was a really good dude. So I understood, because I was excited to meet him too.
Yeah.
But it was so funny. I was like, I don't even know this guy.
Yep. And about 2 months ago or something, you brought it up, and I actually found the picture, and I put a little bubble over Adam's mouth, like, "Hey, bro, I think Sterling's gunning for you." Oh man.
Awesome.
No, well, thank you for not punting me out of there that day and making me feel bad. That was I still have a picture framed over here. I still value that moment, and I love that it showed chutzpah, not some schmuck that was just jumping back there. I love that. So thank you for receiving it that way.
I'm a big fan of the aggressiveness. I'm usually pro-aggressive. But no, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is a fun conversation.
All day, anytime, Sterling. I mean, absolutely anytime. This was fantastic. This, like you said, more data. Now I have more questions. So let's get on again sometime. It really, really, absolutely. Can't wait to see you. And by the way, let's talk about it really quick before we hop off. So where can people see you next? I think you mentioned RLC, or what is your new go-to-market strategy? Real quick, because where will people find you? These companies you serve.
Yeah, I look, the number one place to look to learn more about Chowly is just the website, right?
Yep.
There's videos, there's help articles. You want to dig into some of the products, go into the details, all of that. Our sales team's super fast. If you fill out a form, they'll hop on and answer questions. We'll do digital kind of like grades. We'll tell you stuff that you can improve, whether you go with us or not.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really great resource. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, as a lot of folks know. Sharing a lot of entrepreneurial stories, stuff I learned from Google, and other kind of things on that side. And then from the conference side, I mean, I don't think I've got anything on my schedule this month, but I'll be around at NRA and some of the bigger shows for sure.
Well, I know that Jay Ashton and I and Chad we're going to have a podcast table at the NRA if you want to stop by and shed some founder wisdom with us, or just get some coffee. We'd love to have you by.
That would be awesome. No, I'd love to connect with you guys then.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, Chad. Anything left to say here?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, as always.
Yeah. So this has been Sterling Douglas, the CEO of Chowly, somebody we both admire and love that he's in the world doing the work he does, sharing the light with other entrepreneurs. Just keep crushing it, man. We love it. This is fantastic, and we're grateful for this opportunity. ChatGTM episode 14. That's a wrap, everybody. Thank you.